Ian, we're gonna have to go back and recreate that timer for like a 3 minute, give people a better head start.
Yeah,
But
man. Wait.
we got Logan Fulmer, who has been on the channel before, and y'all loved him. So we wanted to bring him back on and talk about 2023. He's gonna give us some new investing tips, some stuff that they're working on, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. So Logan, welcome to the show, man.
Yes, I always enjoy seeing you two. Y'all are blessed, and the energy, and excitement, and the fun is here. So when you called and said, "Let's get together," I said, "Yeah, let's do that." I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. If you haven't followed Logan on social media at all, I highly recommend you at least find him on Instagram. I'll pull it up here in a second, but he does a lot of different things, or he even teaches classes on investing. So if you're looking at investing, I would reach out to him and talk to him a little bit more about some of the classes and stuff that he has going. And this is not a plug to work with him. I look at a lot of different people on social media, and sometimes you got to look through the BS, right? And Logan reached out to me a while ago about a deal and was like, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing," and he did it. So from experience, he's one of those people I really think does a good job just articulating very well what's going on, and then breaking through those barriers of making things a little bit simpler. So I'm excited, man.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And Ian, as always, man, good to see you. How is your week going? You look like you just did a backflip through a house or two.
I did, man. I'm tired. It's been a long day, but it's good otherwise. I'm not complaining in any way. Logan, thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the end of this year in Austin is interesting. I'm talking to a lot of people in different markets, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's great. I have like 17 homes under contract." Talk to most Austin agents, and they're like, what's going on?" And then I have another really good friend who does a lot of like land deals, does a lot of stuff that Logan does, and he's cranking right now. So it just depends on where you're looking. But Logan, we're starting 2023. First off, give us some good tips on like what people should be looking at for 2023 if they're investing.
Well, it depends on what level what level they're at. Are they a newbie? Are they intermediate? Are they pretty experienced? I would say the bigger group of those people is newbies. So I would say a newbie maybe has 1 to 3 rent houses. They've kind of been involved in, I don't know, they've maybe done an Airbnb or something like that, but they're not like running a big full-time real estate business. They don't have $10 million in real estate, whatever. So the newbie, I really think they should be extremely patient, and B, they need to look at the usefulness of an asset. So I'll just back up for a sec. Last year, I did about $30 million in real estate transactions as a principal. So a large part of those I bought and resold and just captured the equity immediately because I purchased them for less than they were worth. A section of those I kept. So I've got a lot of transactional experience, and I had to vet every one of these deals, the 111 transactions, and say, do I like this property? Do I want to keep it? Should I wholesale it to somebody? Should I close it and then go put it on MLS? What do I want to do? And I started to find, so what that did is that gave me exposure to selling luxury houses on the market that I bought on the cheap, selling industrial warehouses, flipping a small apartment complex to a small fund, things like that. So I've seen the pricing and the behavior across all the spectrums. And what I really think is important is the usefulness of an asset. If you're new, don't get complicated and try to speculate on land or do some kind of downtown lot that you're going to chop up. Go buy yourself income real estate. And I like duplexes, I like fourplexes because you can get really good financing on that. It's much easier for fourplex or less, easy financing. There's always a way to sell that thing. If you need to get your money out, your kid's got to go to college, you're going to sell it, you can sell it in short order. But it's only 4 doors, so you can manage that easy. But there's always a demand for the single family housing. So I'm a huge fan of telling people to start right there. Income, assets, something you can afford to get your head and hands around.
So someone who's just getting started, do you think that more people are better poised to focus on residential or commercial since you do both?
I say it's got to be residential. I think unless you come from a real estate family or have some unique partner or something like that, I wouldn't touch commercial because commercial is expensive, it's slow, and it's completely different. I would not fool with it if it's early on.
Okay. So if somebody's trying to buy an asset, you're pretty much recommending just try to find something that you can get easy financing on and don't, because I hear a lot of people that want to do, I'm hearing a lot of things right now. People are trying to, wholesale flip a lot of stuff right now, and that can be a little interesting. I had somebody write an offer on a property recently that they want to do owner financing, but it's in an LLC. So the way it looks like they're just trying to get that under contract and then flip it to somebody else to actually buy. Do you see a lot of people taking advantage of stuff like that, or is do people? What are your thoughts on
Huge
stuff like
right now because the market's shifting and banks are charging so much more for lending, be it residential or commercial. A lot of savvy investors are now saying, let me just ask these sellers to finance it to me. And I've done that on some commercial assets. It's not complicated. If there's no debt on the thing, or even if there is debt from the prior owner, they can wrap it and sell it to you on a second note. So it's fairly simple.
So
You can get
explain
that
how that would
asset without
work
having to go
then?
through lending. So let's say you own a house. You told me you're buying a house in Green, Texas, I think, not long ago, or New Braunfels.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay. You buy that. You got yourself a mortgage on it. It's in your name. Let's say you want to sell it. Well, if I'm going to buy it from you, I got to go get approved from the bank, go through the process, put down the down payment. But let's say you think I'm a good investor, you think I'm trustworthy, and you're willing to sell it to me on a wrap note. What that means is you're not going to sell it to me for the $500,000 that you paid for it. You're going to sell it to me for $700,000 because it's appreciated. So now you've got a note where I owe you money like I would owe the bank, and you can wrap in regular mortgage notes with a second note. So what happens is I make a payment to you of, let's just say, $7,000 a month, and then you take that $7,000 and pay $4,000 to your mortgage, and you keep the difference. And what's neat about that is you're making a bunch of money on the interest over the period, over 30 years, much more so than you probably would on appreciation in that asset because you're getting paid right now along the way. So it's called a
Right.
sub 2. That's another thing that I would recommend folks are just getting involved in real estate. I'd say go buy yourself 1 to 4 family rental house. And if you find opportunities to buy sub 2, that's even more interesting because you can do those for almost like no money, like almost 10, 20 grand out of pocket. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the deal we had, they were offering a little bit of money on it, but so let's say somebody does that though. What's the benefit really on both sides, right? So is that going to be a 30-year note or is that like a 10-year note?
Depends. What do you offer? That's the neat thing. When you go to Wells Fargo and say, I want a house loan, 30 years, 30 AM, 20% down, whatever. If we're doing it between me and you, it can be 4 years. It can be 9.2 years. It can be 40 years, 30, whatever we want. So that's where someone needs to have some level of sophistication, and they have to put this in an AM schedule and say, if this person is paying me down at this rate, I need to A, make sure I'm paying my bank down at the same rate, and B, I need to make sure my return is worth it. On the seller side, I wouldn't always recommend doing it, especially if you have debt on it, because the big issue is that mortgage stays in your name. So if the buyer doesn't pay that mortgage, if the buyer doesn't pay you, you still have to make that payment to make sure that you don't go into default. But on the buyer side, we make those offers to folks all the time, even with commercial real estate. You'd be surprised, probably 1 in 10 accept.
And that's pretty high rates, 1 in 10.
Great odds, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you're seeing that now in Austin because folks are coming in and saying people are having a hard time selling, the market's shifting. Let me give this a shot.
Oh yeah, I'm getting a bunch of those, but a lot of them are, they're coming in, they're saying, well, will your seller do owner financing? But then they're offering like 100,000 less or something. They're not actually offering favorable terms for the seller. Yeah.
Typically, when a person makes an owner finance offer, they have to pay market or slightly above to get that special treatment.
Right.
Ain't no discount on that one, baby. No way.
Yeah, that's a scenario we ran into. They were playing basically just market for the property, and yeah, interesting. So that's something, if you're thinking about that, I would definitely consider it because it's with the market softening, and we don't really know what's going to happen in 2023. Really, I have some ideas, but I don't think they're. The tough part about this is every time we do something where we say, okay, this is going to happen next year, everyone's wrong. There's not very many people who are actually 100% right. So let's talk about 2023. Obviously you did a lot of investing in 2022. What are you looking for investing in 2023? What's your strategy?
For me, it's a little different. I've started to get really comfortable with the light industrial. So I'm continuing to buy more of that. And because I can't buy it at the same rate that I want to, I'm developing it. So 3 sites, I'm developing that right now with light industrial warehouses. So there's a lot of that.
So walk us through how that works.
So I'll back up a sec and tell you why I like them. If you have a rent house, you have cabinets that can be damaged. You have carpet that might need to get shampooed. You have shorter term. It's a year-to-year lease. It's a gross lease. The owner pays property taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and the tenant just pays a rent check. Those are all the factors when it comes to residential. But light industrial is like red iron building, maybe 15 to 20 foot tall. That's the clear height inside the building. And it's just the warehouse buildings that you see all over the place. They're not the massive concrete tilt wall. They're just metal buildings. That's really what it is. You can build those things for about 70, 80 bucks a square foot. And you can rent them for $10 to $13 a square foot a year. But what's interesting about that is it's triple net leases. So if you were going to get the 1% rule, it doesn't shake out that way. For the 1% rule in metal buildings, it's about 1.5% to 1.75% if you build them yourself. So it's far higher. But the cool part is that's a net rent. The tenant pays taxes, insurance, and maintenance, and they cut me as the landlord 1 check. So every month, I don't even have to have a property management company. My gal at my front desk either collects a check or calls the lawyer and says evict them. That's all the property management it takes. And let me spin on something else for you. There's no cabinets, like I said earlier. There's no carpet to mess up. It's concrete floor and metal structure. I got 30-year-old light industrial buildings that look brand new. You can't destroy these things, dude.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yes.
So triple net lease, like basically you're taking profits off of their sales, right?
Well, no, that's a different type of deal. But what the triple net means is taxes, insurance, and maintenance. That's triple. They're all paid by the tenant, and it's a net lease to me. I just collect a rent check, a base rent. So the rent rate is a little bit lower, relatively speaking, but the return is huge. It really is. They're so simple to manage. The leases on these, they're not year to year like a single family or a fourplex would be. Some of these leases are
5 years,
3
right?
to 7 years. I try to push some of them longer, but yeah, big terms. So I prefer that. If you have access to these or you can develop them, for me, it's really easy. We started doing multifamily and it sucks because one property has 100 doors. Dude, there's 100 toilets, actually 200 toilets on that thing. Like,
Aaron says his tenant made a garden. They left those cubes to plant plants in, 8 of them in total. I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna suck. Yeah, especially when you're the one pulling them out.
Yeah. You know, I got to talk. If folks are looking into the next year to decide what to do, I think ideology is more important than specifics. I think they need to slow down. They need to keep their eyes open for a lot of reasons. One of which is pricing continues to get softer. I had somebody call me this last week and try to sell me a deal, and it was a good deal. And he was telling me, "This is a good deal, Logan. You have to buy this. Why won't you buy this?" And I said, "Aaron, this is a good deal, but it ain't next summer a good deal." And he's like, "Shit, I get what you're saying." So the patience, I think, is so important right now. If you're a buyer, you have the opportunity to look for a great deal. If it's not here this week, keep looking. The same reason you're getting these dead gum seller finance or owner finance offers is the same reason those sellers are willing to lower their price next month for the patient investor.
Aaron says, "Oh my God, we have a reasonable person as a guest." Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like I'm sitting here with Eileen, and she's like, "Yeah, all of our clients are looking at next year." And I literally got off a call with a seller today, and what I told them is, they're gonna have to make some upgrades to their house. They have a tenant in there right now, and so they want to get the tenant out of there, put in money into the house, and then sell it. And obviously they're wanting to sell this house, this investment property, to buy a home back in California. And I'm like, look, I know this is going to kind of suck to hear, but the market isn't going to be crazy good either way. So if you're going to rush, pull a tenant out of there to put it on the market in 2 months, there's going to be more inventory in the market. There's going to be 14, 15,000 homes on the market in Austin, which is stupid high for what we've ever seen by April. I mean, we're at 10,000 still right now. And, this is something we talk about. So I said, look, if anything, like I would almost wait if you can until 2024 or wait till that tenant's out, completely out, then make your mods or, your upgrades to the home and then put it on. But just know when we go put it on the market in July of next year, you're not going to get a high amount for it. But on the flip side, you're going to hopefully still be able to negotiate on the buy side and get that property down. So keep in mind that that's what we're looking at. So, and here's the deal. There's going to be a lot of people trying to sell this coming year, right? They saw 2022, they're seeing prices come down and they're going to freak out and go, okay, I got to sell to make even more money because next year is going to be worse. And I don't think I think 2024 potentially be better than 2023. But, again, what are your thoughts?
Real quick, notice what you said about that. Those clients are moving back to California. Remember that was a conversation. That was a thread that we were having. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
So if they're going to move to California and need that money to go buy the next house, then that's a different situation. But I start at the very beginning and question everything about their decision. I'm going to sell my house. Well, you're going to get a commission, so I don't know if you really want to question that. But if you're asking them for the sake of this conversation, if it were my best friend, I would say, well, tell me why you want to sell it. What are you going to do with that money? Do you have something to do with it right now, or would you prefer to hold on that asset and continue the income? Because the income, your rent rate didn't change last month. It should be the same as what your lease says. And if you have a low rate interest and you have some good equity, why sell now? Just keep the income and wait till you actually need to sell it. Things might change differently in the market. That's one of the deals we deal with commercial tenants right now, or commercial landlords. The market might be softening, but they laugh at me. They say, I still got my $15,000 rent check from that warehouse last month. The market's messed up. Somebody didn't tell me. I'm like, fuck, you're right. So that's what I question their base reasoning. Why are you going to sell it? Now, if there's a real reason for it, the next thing I would do is I would say sell it immediately. I wouldn't wait a day. I would buy the tenant out. Think about it. Let's say the house is worth, I don't know, $500,000 today. By next summer, it's worth $450,000, $425,000. Like that's what we've been seeing lately. So I would go to that tenant and say, hey, can you get out early? And they're going to say no. And you're going to say, how about I hand you $5,000 to leave in 2 weeks? Most landlords are cheap and short-sighted, so they're not going to pay. But now that I believe that the house will be worth $50,000 less in the summer, I'm willing to sacrifice $5,000 to this tenant to get him out of here next week and go sell it right now and get as much as I can. That would be another option.
Yeah. That was something I said. I said, hey, look, you're going to have to probably pay them their deposit back plus a month's rent just to get them out. And then we're going to spend another. What was that?
Pay them 2 months, get them out. Like right now, speed, in my opinion, if you made the decision you should sell, speed, the velocity is important.
Right. And then, but on top of that, what we're seeing, and Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm seeing like, typically the way it would work, Logan, when we would price out a property is we would look at the last 3 months of sales in that area. And then we go, okay, we can deduce that the market's doing this, so it's going to be higher. I can't look past 15 days ago when I'm pricing out homes right now. I can't look past 10 days ago because the price is lower. Every month I can pull up the pricing, but as long as we keep seeing this much inventory in the market, it's going to be a better market for investors to come in cash, just get as low price as they want if there's a seller who's desperate enough. So your question that you asked, what is the reason that you're selling? I think that's a reasonable question that every single agent should ask this year. Instead of putting a commission in front of a client, they should put, the client in front of a commission. And 2024, they'll make all their money back.
I support that. If you take care of the people, they'll take care of you, even if you don't get the deal today. I do support that.
Yeah.
100%.
I want to hear some more of your thoughts on 2023.
Well, I don't think things are going to look any better. So here, I talked about forecasting a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine. Folks always say, oh, next summer we should see some of this. By the end of next year, we should see this. Well, I think the reason they like to forecast within the next year is because, well, we know what's happening next month because it's probably pretty close to what's happening this month. So no one's going to make a 30-day projection. But anybody who makes, just like you said, anybody who makes a projection for the next, I don't know, 3 months. Oh, hold on. Anybody who makes a projection that's in 3 years from now, they're going to be wrong. So they're an idiot. So everybody likes to make these projections that are in the interim 12 months. And the hard part is we don't really know. I mean, what I can tell you is interest rates are continuing to climb, and those have this slow effect that lingers and takes a while. So as prices are tumbling and markets are softening, we still have months and months and months of that to catch up with the recent interest rate changes that have just been happening. So I believe things continue to soften. I think prices continue to go down. Now you have a different factor today than you did in 2008, whatever, the last time we had a bottom out market. At that time, Wall Street did not look at single family assets as an investment asset class. BlackRock was on the scent, but no one else had really gotten on it. Today, Wall Street sees single family as an asset class, and they are willing to dump billions of dollars into it. So as some of these house prices are falling, I don't think they can fall as low as they would have, because once they hit a point where that rent return makes a ton of sense and it fits in the buy box of these funds, they're still scooping things up. So I think they're going to prevent, in some areas, especially like primary markets like Austin, I feel like they would prevent the pricing from getting quite as low as it could, because billions are being deployed on this. So that's an interesting dynamic that wasn't here the last time.
I mean, that's a pretty fair assessment too. And I mean, what we've seen, I mean, there's been several articles over 2022 that talk about how much equity people have in their homes, and the number of, I guess, I forget the term, but like high equity homes in Austin has been high. But a lot of that has to do with, a two years of really high appreciation. When I'm looking at the market right now, if you look at where we would have been now without that big a price appreciation, we're kind of right where we would have been in pricing wise, maybe about 5% less had we not had 25, 30% increases. So, I mean, we're kind of right on track where we would have been just year over year over year had we not seen those gains.
That's fair. I've got several transactions. I'll tell you about one of them that's an interesting one I just did in Austin on Annie. 1109 Annie, I think was the address. Down there, Bolden Creek area, like super high demand. It was a third of an acre, and it was 4 platted lots and had 2 duplexes on it. I had a seller talk to one of the guys on my sales floor and said they would take $1.4 million for the property. So I instantly looked at the comps and saw that third of an acre on a corner within a few blocks from there sold for 1.9, 2.0, 2 million. So I thought, all right, we got plenty of money in this deal. Let's buy it. So we go ahead and buy it and close before they can change their mind. I flip it out there real quick at a little bit higher price just for grins, and I got a contract for 2.1 million. So now I'm saying, all right, I'm at $700,000 delta. I'll probably, after realtor commissions and title fees and all this stuff, make 600, maybe 550. Great deal, all good. Well, then the buyer bombs out because it's fine. There's the first big interest rate change this year at the beginning of summer. Bam, interest rate popped up. He got scared and walked. He left $20,000 in earnest money on the table for me. I put that in my pocket. Went back to the market. The highest offer I could get was $2 million, and the interest rates are continuing to rise. I'm like, goodness, ink that deal, get it in contract. And then he had problems getting approved for financing. He walked and left $20,000. I collected 2 checks from these people so far. And while 40 grand sounds like a lot of earnest money, I'm worried about getting my 1.4 out of this deal. So I continued to lower the price, continue to negotiate. After about, it sat on the market for 60 something days. I ended up accepting an offer at 1.5 million. And when I walked out of it after paying fees and carrying costs, I think I netted like 30 grand. So on 1.4 million, that I had tons of room to go down. That's always my concern. I'm worried about protecting my ass, my investment. And if I make money, great. But as long as I protect my original investment, that's the highest priority. Austin in some premium areas fell so far from 2.1 million down to 1.5 in a 4-month span. That is radical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your net, is that including the earnest checks?
No, I didn't count the earnest. I should have. It's okay. So now I probably made like a little less than 100. While 100 grand sounds like a lot, no one will deploy 1.4 million to make 100 grand. That's super risky.
Right. Yeah, I was wondering what happened with that property. That's what we're seeing. I mean, when I sold my house, obviously I overpaid to come into my new home, but as Ian says, it's love or money. But I was in the same situation. We listed our house like in May, like right when the market just went, and I had over list price offers immediately. And I'm like, awesome, this is great.
Nice.
Accepted one of them, backed out. Went to go accept the other one, they backed out within 30 minutes of each other. And then the next guy came in. I mean, we wrapped it up at the price we wrapped it up. But even then, the whole time I'm like, okay, don't fall, like, don't default, don't back out. I mean, it was nice. I was gonna get like 30 grand in earnest money if they backed out. But at the same time, like,
you want to sell that house, not 30 grand.
At that point, I mean, I wasn't in the worst position. I could have turned around and rented it for $5,500 a month. But the problem I didn't want to run into was having a lawsuit because of a pool or having to continue to fix a pool, because we just put it in and I could see somebody jumping off the balcony and getting hurt, and then I'm sued. And even though I would probably win because we'd have something in writing, like now you got to pay attorney fees. It just wasn't worth the headache, in my opinion.
You're right.
So
bringing that part up, I think that's another interesting thing to discuss. As we go into a weaker market and people are having more financial difficulties, you're going to have more fighting. And I think there's more litigation when you have things change. When a market's stable, I think it's slightly less. When market is just booming upwards, you have more to fight over. When it's booming downwards or falling downwards, you have financial distress and people fight more. So I'm not surprised if the lit environment heats up a little bit too.
Dinosaur D wants to know, he thinks you're Kevin. This is Logan Fulmer, but he wants to know if the crypto market crashed so much that you got to work out of your car or live out of your car.
Dude, the truth is, if I didn't have 4 kids and a wife, I'd live under a bridge. It'd be so low maintenance. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah.
We're actually having an open house with this cool remodel house that we did. We're inviting friends and family. And my wife and all of our friends are open housing it in this cool pink remodel house. And I'm chopping it up with y'all. That's why I'm in my truck.
Show us the remodel house, man.
Oh, fuck.
I know, right?
Dude,
this is an opportunity.
Dude, y'all are going to totally dig this thing. This thing is legit.
This is the first time we've been on a live stream and gotten a tour of something. So this is great.
All right. Let me figure out how to flip. Let's see if this camera flips it around. No, that didn't do it. Let's see here. There's got to be a function to flip the camera while we're on here.
Usually looks like a camera with, the arrows going.
Yeah, but this is StreamYard, so I mean, all
right. I'm going to turn this around. Can you see that house?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay. So this is downtown, a few blocks away from the Pearl. So super premium location. It's a 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I bought it 4 years ago for like, I don't know, 60 grand or something. It's worth 4 times that when I bought it. But I just decided to remodel it lately and figured, what the heck. So I'm going to tell you real quick what I did is I took a real extreme approach to this one, painted the house black, pink accents, and had a really cool designer and said, make this super wild. My wife loves pink, go bonkers. And she said, do you want to see approvals for like, I don't know, design themes and stuff? And I said, nope, Melody, you're awesome. Make it however crazy you want. That's what this is.
It's, the red door looks like right out of M. Night Shyamalan. Nice. So what type of wood floors did you put in this?
They're an engineered product, and I can't really remember what they're called.
Wow. Why aren't you wearing pink?
I'm a fan of the black trim.
Because I'm an idiot. My wife actually asked me that, and I said, hun, you said it was a pink party, but I thought it was because the house was pink. I didn't know my clothes had to be pink.
What were we doing at our lives, man? That's cool.
I like that.
So what are your costs? Because this is a full like down to studs remodel, right?
Yes, it cost. I bought the house for like 60 grand, and I put 200,000 into it. So I added a bedroom and a bath in the back. New metal roof, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, level the thing, complete gut. I mean, it's a new house basically.
Nice.
So I'm in it for about 260. The remodel's 200.
Okay. We won't tell anybody what you're selling it for. 900,000.
It'll probably sell for 500, I guess.
Nice. So, okay. So how long did the remodel, because you said you had it for a couple of years. How long was the remodel on this?
I've been sitting on this thing just, oh wait, hold on. I'll tell you that in a minute. Check this out. My wife had this mirror made. So it looks like a Vogue magazine. And then in the background, it's got the heart-shaped graffiti.
It's like your wife's passion project.
Dude, she loves this. No, I own the house. I mean, it's been vacant for 4 years because the location is so great, and I got it for such a good deal. I just boarded it up and just sat on it. But the remodel took like, I don't know, 5 months probably.
That's cool. It's pretty
You
out
said-
there. Go ahead, Ian.
You said downtown by the Pearl, San Antonio?
Yep.
Gotcha.
I was just there.
Nice.
Yeah, this is walking distance from the Pearl. Super cool.
Yeah, I was literally Trey really messed me up, man. He told me to go to Gloria's, and I went over there and they were closed. And then we ended up going to some fish place around the corner, which wasn't that great. So, man, Trey messed me up, Mr. Spicy.
Yeah,
he's got an
Airbnb right by the Pearl.
Yeah,
Yeah, he does.
that's the people on here call Trey Mr. Spicy.
Mr. Spicy. That sounds like someone his wife Stacy calls him.
Yeah.
All right, this is my favorite room in the whole place. Check this out.
Oh, hold on.
Pink ceiling, crazy green palm leaves, black and white, black toilet. Like this is the coolest room in the house to me.
That's probably one of the most Instagrammable homes I've
I
ever
was
seen.
gonna say that's a bit much. It's not houndstooth, but that's in right now. If it was the floor, the tile, it's pretty good.
Oh yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah,
it's marble. It's black and white marble.
This is a first on this show. There's a couple firsts here. First time somebody's taken on a tour of a house, and secondly, the first time somebody's interviewed from a toilet. So
Perfect seed. Yeah, I'll finish out in here. You know, here's an interesting message. Speaking of markets, I bought this house for $65,000. I could have resold it immediately for $200,000 when I did that. So I would have made whatever that is, $150,000 or a little less maybe. Because I started this remodel in March, pricing has fallen, I know for sure. I'll probably make the same money, maybe slightly more now after this remodel and profit than I would have if I would have just sold it originally. If I would have remodeled it and sold it last year, I'd probably make double in profit. But because the market slid so far, I'll make a lot less.
So why don't you just hold it and Airbnb it or rent it?
So I thought about it. The issue with the Airbnb is I'll probably make $3,000 or $4,000 a month on this. I don't have any debt on it. But to be quite honest, the size of our business, that's not worth my time. If I sell this thing and walk away with $500,000, one of those 20,000 square foot industrial sites that I'll build, it's 4 5,000 square foot metal buildings, so you can have separate tenants in it. It'll cost me $1.5 million to build it, so I'll put down $500,000 and borrow $1 million from the bank. So the $500,000 I'll take from this will be the down payment on a small industrial complex.
Gotcha. That's
worth my time because that pays $25,000 a month in rent instead of this measly $3,000 or $5,000.
Well, didn't you flew out to like West Texas? You like got a private jet, flew out to West Texas on a deal I think that you didn't even buy. Is that right?
Yes. I'm reminded of that often by my business partner, CPA.
I didn't mean to put salt in the wound. I thought you had posted something, the fact that you didn't buy that property, but that was what, a $4 million property in West Texas?
So our thought was it was going to be worth about 50% more than our purchase price.
Okay.
But we got out there and, when you look at it on paper, it made sense. One of our acquisitions guys found it and I met it on paper. I'm like, damn, this is a deal. Otherwise I wouldn't have done that trip out there. But when we got out there on the ground, the neighborhood that it was in was a lot different on the ground. It looked and smelled different. When we looked at the buildings, the style of construction wasn't as tight as we really expected. There was some looseness in the construction. There's just a lot of little things that I couldn't see in the pictures. We had drone photography, but man, when we got on the ground, it was different. So It didn't make sense. Even the guy was offering to lower his price right there, and we're like, man, no, no.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's well, I mean, at least you're practicing what you preach because you were telling people to be patient and what looked like a good deal, you still backed out on. So the moral of this talk today is whether you're investing or you're buying next year, be patient, find the home that's going to make the right sense for a living. And if you're going to buy and live in, if you're investing, you got to make sure you're buying the right deal that's going to make sense and make money, not right now, but 2-3 summers from now.
Yep. Back to your message about early investors and how to deal with the next year and what the right idea is. The patience is the most important part. And I don't think anybody should be in a rush, even if it's in a good market. You don't need to be in a rush. Aaron is saying on here, you got to go with your gut. If something doesn't feel perfectly right, wait. The best deal I ever did is the one I didn't do. And what that basically means is there's so many deals that get screwed up all the time, but I've been able to watch deals that I thought about doing and didn't, and they were bad deals, and I'm glad. So I really, really think that watching and being patient until you're feeling real comfortable about it is wise. You're spending this money that you spent years to save. Maybe you inherited it. I mean, maybe you've put blood, sweat, and tears into earning this money. When you respect every one of those dollar bills with the amount of your time you traded in your life to get it, don't jump.
This reminds me. So you were talking about a property that lost 600,000 in value in the time that you purchased it to selling it. So I have a client right now, and they've invested with me and bought a couple properties. And we found this property that was out in Wimberley. It initially listed, I think, for about 1.1 million on 5 acres, 2 buildings. One's a house and one's a metal building, and with a pool. And they've dropped their price all the way down from 1.1 to 800. And we had an offer out there that was well below 800, and we're about 25 grand apart. And my client kept going like, dude, we were this close to getting it.
They should be 0 grand apart. They should take that offer.
They should take this offer because we're not at 800. We're well below that. But even then it made sense. And I'm telling my clients, they're like, we're 25 grand apart. We could come up this 25 grand. I'm like, I'll be honest with you. If you're hesitant this much, it's better just to walk and let them come down because
your clients are the buyers.
Buyers. Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were the sellers. I was going to say, you tell them to take it, but you're
No. And that's tough because I think I don't, without giving too much detail about this property, there's familiar relations between the seller and the agent. But if it was my client, I'd be like, look, this isn't going to get better next year. You have a lot of deferred maintenance on this property. You're going to have issues with the pool. It needs a brand new septic. So if it didn't need a brand new septic, there's 25 grand out there plus road costs. I mean, this is going to take them 6 months before they can turn profit or turn dollars on an Airbnb on it. It makes no sense. So to your point, you got to make sure the dollars make sense, not right now, but in the future.
Absolutely.
So Aaron's Logan, just sitting and waiting. There was a good question up here a while ago. I wanted to get your take on this. It was Joe had written it, I believe. Yeah, here we go. Will more inventory and softer housing market keep rents high? As a newbie looking at investment properties, looking at rents, I've wondered if rent will stay at current levels.
We looked at these last week too.
Yeah.
My answer to that is I wouldn't worry about that. Early on, I looked at all these different metrics and tried to get so smart and figure all these things out so I could be the most educated, make the best decision. And the more I invested, the more basic I became. And I started to step back and look at it from a different perspective. So I'd say, Joe, don't worry if the rent's going to hold stable. Spend the time finding a really, really, really great deal in a prime location. You're going to get the best piece of real estate you can. And if you're going to hold on that real estate for a long period of time, which is what most people intend to do, the rents will go like this over time. But you bought a grade A asset in a good location for a great price. That's what I would worry about. Because if the rent fluctuates, let's say it fluctuates 10, 15%. if you got a really good deal on the asset, 10, 15% and change of the rent doesn't matter.
I think the tough thing you have to worry about too is just in Austin and the peripheries is what happens with the property taxes. That's where if you're buying as an investor, that's where you really need to make sure that you have decent cash flow ahead of time, because if you don't have decent cash flow and you're buying that, I'm telling you, property taxes are going to go up again next year. They're not going down. Everybody's talking about, oh, prices came down, property taxes will come down. The city has already spent your money.
You're right. So folks used to invest in Texas for cash flow and appreciation. And folks on the East Coast, because appreciation was so crazy, they would break even or sometimes negative cash flow, so that when they sell the asset in 5, 10, 20 years, they would have this massive profit. They profited on the yield at their exit time, not throughout. And Austin has evolved into that. I know a lot of people that negative cash flow or break even, so they sell in 10 years. That's where they make their profit. And that's tough for a cash flow investor that's not mega wealthy. You say, well, God, I don't want to go through all this work and rent this house and just break even. But folks need to be aware that when you're looking at numbers in a market like Austin, don't think they're going to totally make sense unless you get a smoking deal, because you might see that you're break even. You're going to say, what the F is that? No, chill. You're getting a good deal in a soft market, going ahead and break even, or at least have a little padding to cover your tax increases the next few years. And when the market starts to recover, that's when you'll see some change. But you probably won't cash flow mega unless you get a smoking deal in Austin these days.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm looking at. I think the sweet spot for me when I'm looking at investments, and Ian's bought a few investments, so I want to get your take because you're still looking. I'm always looking for homes that are right in that a little bit newer, 3 to 350, that are going to have 26 to 3,000 a month rent, in areas that are seeing year over year appreciation, minus the craziness the last two markets that have seen year over year appreciation of like 6 to 9% or more. Right. And so that's where I'm looking for my sweet spot. And it's hard to do. That's why I went out to New Braunfels, and thankfully I did, because the prices there, I haven't been hit as hard. They've come down a little bit, but definitely not been hit as hard as Austin has.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're finding a 350 rent house in Austin. Like that's pretty tough, but that's why you moved out of it.
Right.
Investing in a lot of middle America places, not the marquee, not the primary markets like Austin. Like San Antonio, I guess I'd call secondary market. It used to be tertiary, but it's getting more steam now. Those areas, your median household price is a little bit lower. In San Antonio, it's below 300. Austin's probably mid fours these days. I don't know. But I find those prices, they're always liquid. They're always a good buyer. In the median home price, or slightly less, they hold stability on pricing. Remember that $2 million deal I told you about that went down to 1.5?
Yeah.
So with a 25% price change, price drop, that happened. In San Antonio, I've got a business line where we do nothing but pre-foreclosures. So we do 5 to 10 pre-foreclosures every month. And on all those houses are less than 300 grand. Those things fly off the shelf. Literally, I have no problem selling those things like that. It's below the median. I mean, we really top out about 250 on those, which is 50 grand below our median home price. Dude, they vanish. And people are telling me this is the toughest market out there. They can't sell anything. I'm like, well, somebody come over here and tell my guy that's operating that business that, because you don't know what you're talking about.
Just real quick on this point. If anybody's wondering what a 911 in Miami blue looks like, you're definitely not going to get this with negative cash flow. And if you find this car, reach out to me, because I'd love to help you drive it. Oh man, that's funny. My 911 is not in Miami blue, but close. Sorry about that. That's funny.
You see Aaron's comment? He's like, I just want to make $50 a door, man.
Yeah.
$50 a door. That's pretty easy these days. $50 a door.
Well, I mean, I like the way Aaron does it, because Aaron's really, you're having somebody else pay off your mortgage and give you equity on a property that you put a low investment into, right? $60,000, $70,000, and somebody else is paying it off for you, and you can depreciate the asset if you need to. So I haven't done have done zero investing in commercial. So that's why I want to talk to you a little more about, your strategies for commercial investing. Because I think, like, my goal over the next 2 years is this: I want to buy a commercial space, in that commercial space, I want to have a coffee shop and a small restaurant, and then and have a real estate studio and office, so I can make money off the coffee. People are going to come to the coffee shop. Agents will pay me to have a video production studio, and then there'll be a small restaurant there. So there's always a reason why an agent would want to come sit there and even sit outside next to the coffee shop. So that's something I'm looking for. What would be your recommendations in trying to find something like that?
Wow, that's tough. You want to be in Austin?
Well, I'm in Dripping Springs, so I'll do it in Dripping Springs.
Oh man,
which is just as even more expensive.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, man, out of the frying pan in the fire.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have to face the reality that you're not going to get it cheap. And you're going to have to face the reality that you're going to have to spend a lot of money to redo it. So you got to make a decision. Is this an investment or is this a business decision? A lot of business owners pay top dollar or more for their real estate because they need that warehouse to house their business, to run their operation. Or a lot of people will buy an office and they'll pay top dollar because they're not a developer. They can't spend the time to fool with that. They need to buy it because they're an architect. They need to get to work. They need to move their people in. So if you're looking for a deal and you want to choose the time, the location, the asset class, and it be a fair price, you can't get all four of those. You can usually get about two of those four. So because you care about location and timing, you're just going to have to pay full price. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. I was trying to, get a deal.
Logan. But because it's an owner occupant building, you can get SBA loans, and even community banks will offer very good terms on owner occupied real estate. Even SBA loans that don't like to loan, or even commercial banks, the community banks that don't like to loan on real estate will do owner occupant loans at very good terms. So that's
on commercial or on?
Yes, on commercial, because it's owner occupant. And the neat thing is, so like my office, I've always bought 2 or 3 times more space than I needed so I could rent it out. And I've always done great on that model. So if you buy the place, lease out spaces, help recover some of your costs, you may not cash flow, you might just be breaking even, but you're not paying for your use of it. And you're probably going to get some pretty decent upside over time, but you also have this hub for your business.
Interesting. I like that. All right, Logan, I'm going to go find one this week. Ian, what did you, we talked about investment strategies. You do some investing. I've seen you do more of you buy, sit on it for 2 years, move to the next property. But what are the strategies do you have right now?
Yeah, right now. So I might adopt what one of my investors is doing. He's going % under for everything. Obviously looking at certain criteria, tax rate and what have you, certain markets, but he's just throwing spaghetti at the wall. The thing is, kind of like you were saying, I don't have a particular need for any type of space other than thinking long term, what is going to be a good investment to hold on to. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see what's happening right now, but I'm not moving at the same speed that Logan's moving, of course.
You know what else? If historically you've been buying, holding for a couple of years and reselling in the last 10 years, if you did that any 2 years of the last 10, you're making good money. But I don't think that particular strategy works for the next couple of years. So you're going to have to think that through a little bit.
Yeah, everything will be a whole.
You know what else too? You're an investor. That doesn't mean you're investing at the moment. If I wasn't running a business like this, let's say I was running a manufacturing plant and that was my day-to-day, I would just chill out and watch and let this market fall apart. There's no pressure to invest in 2023. If I wasn't a professional investor for a living, I would not be deploying money at a time like this. I'd let the market do what the heck it's going to do for the next year, and I'd start to look for stabilization. So when things are crazy when the market's going up, any fool can look brilliant. When the market's going down, that's when it's scary and bad choices happen. When it's stabilized, even if it's stabilized at the bottom or the top, when it's stabilized, it's predictable and you can make decisions based on what you believe. So the stability is what you want to look for. But if it's falling, I would maybe say in your situation, you know what, take those chips off the table and just watch. I'd watch for a year. I wouldn't feel pressure to deploy money because the money is not as liquid today in real estate as it was last year. And you're not going to buy and resell in a year or two and make money right now. So, wise men wait.
Dinosaur D says, just hold and get someone to pay off your mortgage is better return than any savings account or stock at the moment, as long as Biden doesn't bring on more rent-free policies.
Dude, I do agree with that. But at the end of the day, your debt pay down, if you're going to get yourself a new mortgage on a new property, for the first 5 years, you're not getting any debt pay down. It's all interest. So if the two alternatives you have are buy and let a tenant pay your debt down, or just wait till you can find a much better deal, you're going to get a better deal next summer or even Christmas than the amount of equity your tenant would have paid down for you during that time. And the cool part is, while you're waiting, you don't have to do anything. You can take naps. You can play video games. You can go play with your kids. You don't have to do anything.
You can do open houses at a pink house.
Yeah. You can Zoom from the bathroom.
That's funny. Well, all right. So 2023, you're telling people just to take it easy, leave all the deals for the big fish like Logan. What other?
Of course, he's going to say that.
Of course. This is why Logan is so chill, is because he's in a pink house. All right, this is a good one. So I love this. Guessing Reventure Consulting was right about the bubble. No, the guy never said anything about the Fed raising rates. He said Austin was going to die off because it was going up too fast and that rental rates weren't catching up. It's easy to say that the housing market's going to crash every single year, and then one year finally be right. And we still haven't even seen a crash. We're at -1% year over year, -2% year over year. So not really correct.
Yeah. Jeremy, tell me how you feel about that one. Lit a fire under you.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are trying to say that bullshit, but it's not even close. And then he also said it's going to take 5 years to. Then he's hedging his bets. He's saying it's going to say it takes 5 years for a market to crash. Okay, or so
that's anyway. Not how it happened in 2007.
Yeah, no, it happened pretty instantly. Prices just followed, but. Interesting. Reventure was saying the bubble was going to burst when properties were at 235K. So, I mean, he's been saying that a long time. But anyway, all right. So when I texted you, you had talked about a different asset class. I forgot what it was. You were telling me that it was what people should be looking at investing in. I forget what it was.
It was a financing model. It was probably sub 2, I think.
Yeah, sub 2, which is what we talked about earlier, which was basically being a second mortgage on a property. Well, you can re-explain it real quick.
Yeah, or if I'm just going to buy something from somebody subject to, seller financing and sub 2. So they can go hand in hand. A lot of folks are getting people to seller finance their properties to them if they have them paid off. That's really neat. And the neat thing is you can make your own terms. So you may not have to come out of any money out of pocket. You just agree to maybe a little bit higher payment for a short amount of time or things like that. So you have some really good options. Any of these financing things, whether it's seller finance or subject to financing, don't require a bank. And that allows a person to get creative. That allows a person to bring less money to the table. And it's just easier to deal with. If you go on YouTube, there are literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of videos about subject to and seller or owner financing. I would encourage folks to start looking at that stuff.
Interesting.
A lot of folks wholesale pre-foreclosures with the subject to model. And what happens is if a person's behind in their mortgage and an investor shows up and says, hey, let me buy this from you, that investor will wholesale it and just take a $20,000 fee and sell it to the next person, maybe like one of you guys or me. And we'll take that property, and all we did was pay $20,000 to the investor, and then the mortgage gets assigned to me. The property gets assigned to me. So now I own it. I'm just making payments on Johnny Boy's debt that stayed in place. So that's another thing too, where I don't have to apply for the debt. I don't have to go through all that. I think those are two huge things to look at. I really think they are. They're simple, they're easy, and they make your life easier. And people are really open to doing it, surprisingly.
They're becoming more open to it. So
yeah, I think right now makes sense for a lot of people.
So folks are somewhat familiar with the seller financing model. What I've been doing is telling people, hey, you want $1 million for that warehouse? Great. I'd like to buy it on an installment sale from you. Would you like to be kind of like the bank? And they say, sure. So what I do is they say, how much are you going to pay me a month? And I said, I don't know. How long will you finance that for me for? 20 years or 10? And they're like, how about 20? It's okay, great. So I take $1 million and divide it by the amount of months, 240 months in 20 years. And then I can't remember what the math comes out to, but I say, okay, I'm going to give you that much a month. Did you see what I did there? There's no interest.
Yeah.
That's really clever.
So sometimes they'll say, I'll take $1 million. And I say, how about if I give you $1.1 million? Will you sell it to me on an installment sale? I'm overpaying about 100 G's, 10%, but I'm not having to pay interest, which really makes you pay 250% more than the property. I'm only paying 10% more here. It's almost an interest-free loan. So now, if I were to have bought that $1 million piece of real estate with a 7% commercial mortgage or 6% like right now, I'd have been paying $2 million or $2.5 million when it's done with. Instead, I'm still paying the $1 million. It's just the installment payments.
That's pretty smart.
That's really good. That's really good.
So those are some of the offers that we've been making to people now.
Logan, do you care about things like cap rate? Like, do you watch that when you're purchasing?
Man, it's a metric because in one of my businesses, we wholesale commercial real estate to the end buyer, and that's a metric that we use. For me, I do use it to compare apples to apples because it's just a familiar metric. I mean, most of the developments that I'm doing right now or the stuff I own, I want to be between 15 and 20 cap. That's what I'm at because I'm getting such a big discount.
That's high. That's good.
It is. I mean, a
That's-
1%
I was like, wait, what?
rule on a rental is like a 7 or 8 cap if you're lucky. Institutional buyers are buying like big grade A assets that are 10, 20, $30 million on 5 to 7 caps with like national credit risk tenant stuff like that.
It's interesting because I've just seen so many. What I'm doing, looking at deals in Austin, I mean, it's like 4%, 4.5%.
You know what that is? That's freaking break even. Because
Yeah.
when we run that math like that, there's always something that happens that you don't account for. That's a break even.
Yeah. And that's where it's like, I have clients like, oh, and I think this was the hard part too. A year ago, you couldn't get that math to work because everything was going up so rapidly, so fast. So I'm curious, to see. The problem is if you're, buying with a loan, right? You got to factor that in. Interest rate for buying a single family, 2-plex, 3-plex, 4-plex is going to be much higher than somebody just buying a regular property, unless you're going to live in one side of or live in part of the 4-plex or whatever. But it's been so hard to find something that actually makes sense. So I'm curious to see how 2023 rolls around. Do we start seeing 6, 7, 8% again, or is it still going to stay 5% below? I think a majority of the reason is just going to be primarily taxes.
Yeah, you mean on the return on a single family? You're talking about the interest rate on the loans.
Well, interest rate on the loans,
multifamily.
Yeah. I mean, it's anybody's guess. I mean, really, the rates keep going up, and usually they've gone up faster than they really ever have in any of our lifetimes. And they don't normally move that quick up or down. So, I mean, it's taken them a year to roll up this high. They've doubled in the last year. I mean, it's going to take years and years and years for them to roll backwards. So,
Logan, let me ask you, because of the way the market is right now and because of your experience with these types of investments, are you living your best life right now? Like, are you glad it's where it's at?
That's a really good question. I loved when the market was booming because I was absolutely killing it. And honestly, as the market's softening, I see more opportunity, but it hasn't softened enough for me to say, let me just dump and go all in.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that time because I've spent years being transactional and stripping cash out of these deals and building cash and credit. So I'm built heavily now in that regard. But I'm not dumping. But I will tell you, business is easier right now. I'm just kind of taking it easy, doing work, but no pressure.
So just to your point, what you're saying is you're just not feeling that this is where you want to dump.
No, when I get a smoking deal, someone sells me something for half price, I don't give a shit what's happening in the world. I'm buying that because the income's so good on it, the commercial stuff. But, otherwise, I'm just looking at it saying, that's an okay deal. But I'm just making sure that I spend my money and my credit on the best deals. And when I have a month where there's so many of the best deals, I get scared. That's when I'll know I'm like, dang, we're there. But that ain't happening yet.
You heard that. When you get scared, there's so many best deals that you get scared.
So I dumped everything I had into vacant infill land in 2009, 10, 11, and 12 range. It was the bottom of the market. And I talked about this with y'all. I just dumped all my cash, everything I had in these 22 dozen vacant lots downtown. And I believe we were at the bottom of the market, and that was the best business, actually the best play I've ever really had. Because those lots became worth $100,000 to $200,000 each, and I was buying them for $5 and $10 a piece in a very short amount of time. When we see, and I remember after that happened, I remember telling myself that was the luck of a lifetime, and I'll never be able to replicate that. But as I spent another 10 years in real estate almost now, I look at it and say, we're due for a really low point one of these days again. And when it happens, I'm going to know it. And last time I dumped all the cash I had in it. This time it's different. I'm going to dump all my cash. Well, not all, about 80% of it. And then I'm also going to borrow 2 times that from the bank and dump that in too. So I'm going to go really heavy this go around when I see that opportunity, if it comes now.
All right. This is my last question. What is the biggest mistake that you've made, or the worst play that you've made, so that we know not to repeat it?
You know, a lesson that goes back to, I always like to say, is the first loss is the best loss. This loss happened in 2015 or 16. I was flipping a $500,000 house, and I talk about this often. I overpaid for it. The rehab went over budget, and the pricing sank in the neighborhood slightly for some reason. Don't know. And I had to come to the table with $50,000. And at the time, I was just making money, and I was like, oh my God, like, if this is what investing is, I don't know, I got the stomach for this. It was really tough. That changed my business model and caused me to look at what all my risk parts are to make up a whole risk profile. It changed the way I look at deals forever. I think about that deal once a week still when I'm valuing stuff. So the first loss is the best loss is a huge lesson. And when folks are making a decision right now that they need to sell, they're going to move, I wouldn't call that a loss, but it's make your decision and make your move and go, because the longer you prolong it, numbers always get worse when you're having to make a quick decision, when things have to change fast. It's time for you to move. Make that move and go. Cut the bait, sell the asset, get out.
And that's some of the advice, like I'm trying to tell some of these seller clients that are sitting, 90 days, 120 days on market. Like, if you get that deal, unfortunately, like, yeah, you're not going to make 250 grand like you thought, but
that's your deal. You might not get another one in the next 3 months. And the next 3 months looks way different than today. Take it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, cool. All right. We've been an hour, man. You got to go back and get some champagne and put on a pink shirt. So I appreciate you jumping in on here. Ian, any last questions?
No, I asked it. Well, you know what? I do have one. You said you teach this stuff, right? Where can people find that information?
If you'll go to Instagram, The Real Estate Junkie, or on Facebook, Logan Fulmer. I got a ton of stuff. I post about the coaching program. I probably give out more free info than people pay for in the coaching program. But it's fun.
What investors like, man.
Yeah, and it builds a great community. And I get to know cool guys like you, and it changes the game. So please connect. Yeah, there's my Instagram right there.
Yeah, got it right here. This is I like that Logan goes on a lot of stuff. He talks about this stuff quite a bit. I have a really good friend that did really well. Is doing very well. His name's Tommy Mello. He's on here somewhere. He started a garage door business. Actually, bought it from a friend that was failing, and he turned it into $100 million company. It's insane. So I love it when people do cool stuff like that. I'm trying to get Tommy to buy a $10 million house out here right now. So we'll see how that works. But all right, everybody, that's it. Check out Logan. You can find us on Instagram as well, at The Real Jeremy Knight, at ianofAustin, at Logan Fulmer, The Real Estate Junkie.
The Real Estate Junkie.
Yeah.
We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.